Hi everyone, my name is Summer Manistar. I'm reporting to you from St. Augustine, Florida. My group members and I are all coastal environmental science majors at Flagler College. Today, we're going to be discussing the findings of our semester-long research study involving the invasive Bullseye snakehead and the potential effects it may have on Florida's freshwater aquatic ecosystems.
Hello, my name is Skylar Robinson. I am currently reporting from the beautiful Florida Keys, and I will be in charge of introducing this fish to you, introducing our project to you, and giving you a little background info.
Hi, my name is Dan Coriel. I'm currently reporting from Ohio, where it is too cold for the bullseye snakehead to live, but somehow I am. Today, I will be talking to you about the methods our group used to catch and study the bullseye snakehead.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael Robertson, and for our project I will be talking about the discussion and a little more in depth about the data we found from our study. I'm still in St. Augustine, hanging out in quarantine, but weather's pretty nice and I hope everyone's doing well.
So I'm going to be introducing our topic to you guys and kind of explaining some of the things that we were doing, that we were focused on, and also giving a little bit of background on our focal organism, which, in case you hadn't already guessed, is the bullseye snakehead, Channa, which is a large member of the family Channidae, which encapsulates all the snakeheads. So it was thought and theorized that the snakehead had come over from its native habitat in South Asia to the U.S. via pet trade. They are quite widely regarded as a good food fish, but it's unlikely that due to where it was introduced, there was a large need for other food fish in the area of South Florida. So it's speculated that it's more likely that they were traded as pets and then subsequently released into the surrounding environment. So the introduction of these fish began right around one of our sampling sites in an area of kind of southern Broward County called the C14 Canal. And the C14 Canal essentially connects to a bunch of different waterways and water systems around the area. And at this point, we found that the snakeheads have moved further north and kind of encompassed a much larger area of South Florida, up into even southern West Palm County. So we're seeing a definite range expansion in them, which brings us kind of to why we picked our topic. So with this range expansion and with these raising temperatures that we're kind of experiencing here, we speculate that the snakehead eventually could make its way up into our native waters around St. Augustine. And it's regarded as an invasive species, but there is some debate around that. So we wanted to see just what kind of effect that these snakeheads were having down in South Florida, and what would maybe happen if they were able to make their way up to us, and if it would be a suitable environment, if they were having similar prey items, if the habitat around in the surrounding area was similar, and if it will be sustainable for these snakeheads. We also wanted to see how the biodiversity was affected in the areas that we were both finding snakeheads and that snakeheads had been recorded previously. So after looking at some previous studies, we were able to determine that snakeheads are very non-discriminatory eaters. They consume a wide variety of different prey items that can range anywhere from different species of fish to freshwater crustaceans and insects, as well as amphibians, and even some small birds have been found in the stomachs of snakeheads. So this was very important in determining what we were going to put in front of them to sort of mimic what these prey items would be and give us the best chance of capturing these fish. On that note, it was also important to find out what type of hunters they are. They're ambush predators, so essentially they'll lie wait underneath some sort of foliage structure or cover, wait for something to swim or float by, and then come out and attack it when it passes by. So this was important in determining sampling sites because we were looking for areas of cover, foliage, where these fish would be when they were looking for their food items. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dan and let him kind of tell you how we went about conducting our study. Dan?
We chose sampling sites in St. Johns County as well as Broward County, Florida. In St. Johns County, we chose a few small creeks and some larger ones directly connected to the St. Johns River, as well as a few spots on the St. Johns River. Closer to St. Augustine, we chose a few smaller ponds and a few larger lakes to sample. For our sampling down south in Broward County, we chose canals directly connected to the C14 canal. To conduct our sampling, we used a 6-foot cast net, as well as rod and reel with multiple different types of lures. To record the fish that we caught, we used a viewing chamber for any fish under 15 centimeters long. Any fish larger than that was measured using a ruler and then weighed using an electronic fish scale. At each site we went to, the cast net was thrown 5 times while someone else was using the rod and reel. In both St. Johns County and Broward County, many invasive and non-native fish species were caught during our sampling. These species included Mayan cichlid, peacock bass, armored catfish, tilapia, and many others. On our second trip down at this canal behind a Home Depot, Skylar successfully caught a bullseye snakehead. After euthanizing the snakehead quickly and safely, we then put it on ice for later dissection. After a long, successful day of sampling, Skylar then filleted the snakehead and removed the stomach. Upon further dissection, we found the stomach to be completely empty with nothing inside.
Now we're going to be looking at the results of our study. At every location that we sampled at, we took GPS data points, which we later uploaded into ArcGIS Desktop. This helps us compare the species that were caught at every site and gives a visual representation of everywhere that we sampled. We also uploaded previous data compiled by the USGS, which shows where snakeheads have been caught in the past, and compare it to the sites that we caught it at during our study. We'll also be taking a look at some graphs comparing species biodiversity at every site. So what you're looking at now is an ArcGIS map that has quite a bit of data on it. The orange dots that you see represent GPS locations of everywhere that my group and I sampled at. The larger the orange dot, the more species that were collected in that location. Keep in mind, these dots represent all species, not just bullseye snakeheads. The red and blue dots that you see are actually data that was compiled by the U.S. Geological Survey and are all locations where snakeheads have been caught and recorded previously. Now here's where it gets a little more interesting. In this image, you can see those 2 orange circles are marked off by red squares. These circles represent the 2 locations where our group actually caught bullseye snakeheads. In one area, we caught 1 bullseye snakehead. In the other, our awesome group member Skylar Robinson caught 7 bullseye snakeheads. What's really interesting about this data is that if you look, these 2 areas, there was no bullseye snakeheads previously recorded there. So this is all new data that we're actually going to be reporting to FWC and the U.S. Geological Survey so that they can update some of their own data and know that there are now bullseye snakeheads in those areas. My group and I also wanted to compare species biodiversity for the 3 main areas that we sampled at. Chart 1 shows the data from the St. Johns River where we caught a total of 11 fish consisting of 4 different species. Chart 2 is the data from St. Augustine, where we caught a total of 31 fish, consisting of 7 different species. Chart 3 shows the data that we collected in Broward County, where we caught the bullseye snakehead, where we caught a total of 35 fish, consisting of 10 different species. The red stars that you see marked around the charts represent species that we found that were the same in all 3 main locations. What ended up being one of the final parts of our project this semester was the dissection of the stomach of one of the bullseye snakeheads that we caught. So in the upper left in image 1 is a somewhat gnarly picture of a fish stomach waiting to be dissected. And in image 2, you can see our group member Skylar Robinson dissecting the stomach of the bullseye snakehead. Unfortunately, there was no stomach contents found, therefore we could not determine diet. And due to the closure of the labs on campus, we were unable to DNA barcode the bullseye snakehead. But we hope to someday do that in the future.
First off, I hope everyone's having a good quarantine. I hope everyone's staying safe, staying indoors, and hopefully this all ends soon so we can all go back to having a good time. From the data explained by Summer, it led us to conclusions about our study and our hypothesis that we stated earlier. But from the sample sites, probably one of the best parts about it was that the St. Augustine sites, the South Florida sites, and the St. Johns River were all very similar. They're almost the exact same. The good part about that was that we could compare them easily to one another, and there was no large variations or differences between each area. The biggest difference was that in South Florida there was snakeheads, but that was our whole study, was that they are in South Florida, but they have the potential and the ability to move up north if water temperatures reach to a certain level. And one of the big things that was really helpful for our study was that each sampling site we caught a lot of the same fish. So mostly bluegills, sunfish, and bass, and the cool thing about it, we did catch a lot. There was a large quantity, large numbers, which allowed us to really compare, take a lot of pictures, and be able to see, okay, well, there's this species in South Florida, but also there's the exact same species in St. Augustine. So if snakeheads moved up north, there'd be no issue with them moving and finding prey. We only caught one snakehead that we actually dissected and went through its stomach contents to see what was in it and if there was any prey / other organisms we could find. But we did catch 8 total that were actually not caught in previously recorded sites from FWC, so we did notify them and we did show that there were more places than they did talk about originally that had snakeheads. As well, from our entire data, we have noticed they do have the potential to migrate north since the water temperatures are getting warmer and could be consuming fish and other species in North Florida, which they would be very comfortable with. All of the species are very similar to each other throughout North and South Florida. And as long as the earth keeps getting hotter, which from what we've looked at, it is, they shouldn't have any problems moving north and causing problems up in northern Florida or farther beyond that point.
Although our study may have been cut short, my group and I are so grateful that we got to have this incredible experience of studying the invasive bullseye snakehead and the effects it has on Florida's freshwater ecosystems. We would like to say a huge thank you to our professors, Dr. Saran, Dr. McGinley, and Dr. Veenstra, for all of their help and guidance that they've offered us throughout this project. We'd also like to say thank you to Mr. Scott Bisping for advising us on what types of permits we would need to obtain in order to carry out this project. And lastly, thank you to everyone watching our virtual Capstone Symposium. We hope that you're all staying safe out there, and we'll see you again sometime in the future. Thanks, everyone.